you have to explicitly say, I would like for us to be, in a relationship or, committed or monogamous or however you want to define it. I definitely think that both men and women make the mistake of assuming that that's your man or that's your woman, and that's a big no for me. Like, if I'm dating, I'm dating. You know what I mean? Just because we might talk often doesn't necessarily mean that you're my man. You know. So
I would even say, starting a relationship. I don't think a lot of us look for what we really want. A lot of us settle for what we think we want or what somebody say we should want. You know what I mean? A lot of people say, oh, you should be with this person because, or you looking at somebody else's life and you see that they look happy and you just want that same kind of life. A lot of us, I'm not even going to speak on women. I'm going to just say a lot of men will just settle for a woman that would give him enough attention. You get what I'm saying? Whether it's sexual or, speaking to them, a lot of men would just settle with a woman that just listening to them or hearing them out or following their directions because it's so uncommon for a lot of us. So,
I have a question. How do you guys start your relationship? How do you let your woman know that now this is the beginning of a long-term relationship?
That is tough because I rarely have asked a woman, like, do you want to be my girlfriend? I feel like I ain't do that since like high school or some shit. Like, you know what I mean? But I think after a while, enough talking, and that's probably me, just a lack of communication on my end, but it just feels like we have graduated to a state of where we just automatically know that we are locked in, like, you know what I mean? So
how do you know?
How do you know? That's what I'm saying. It's an
assumption.
assumption.
You have an intentional conversation.
I'm like, yeah, you're not.
Because for the ladies,
I think after a while, it is intentional because it just comes down because I never said it verbally. Then it gets to a point like, are we in a relationship, or it's just that sometimes it slipped. Like I was talking to somebody and then I was talking to somebody, they end up calling me their man, and they had told it to like it was a close friend situation, like we were talking for a minute, like, you know what I mean? So when she gave me that title, I didn't push back.
Did you hear what she asked you though?
Huh?
Did you hear what she asked you though?
Yeah, because
are you her man? Are you her man?
Are you her man? Yes or no? Simple.
I would say yes, I was. Like, you know what I mean?
Okay.
The laugh and then the I would say is crazy.
Because we were in that stage where we were getting to know each other. We already took those steps, you know what I mean? So it was.
But if she's saying that you are her man, why are you saying I would say that? Because is there a disconnect?
No, I'm just saying I agree with her. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
But it wasn't like, again, it wasn't something where I was like, yo, do you want to be my girl? Like, it was just, she just ended up saying that, and then it was shared to me, and I was like, you know what, it makes sense. It just was never communicated. Like,
I guess I am.
Like, ladies, do you prefer him to ask or to have that conversation and say, you are now my girlfriend, or will you be my girlfriend, or make that very clear?
For me, if a man can't have that initial conversation, that shows where he is in his communication. If he can't have that conversation with me, I want you to be my girl, then how are we having harder conversations?
But I would find.
Oh, I had a couple interesting points, but it's a good question. Like, how do you establish the relationship, if the relationship is exclusive or not? How does that typically happen when it comes to dating?
You have to be clear. You have to communicate that and not make any assumptions. That goes on both parts. Because I have seen a situation unfold where, you can communicate with the person every day. You can have a great vibe or whatever you want to call it. That doesn't necessarily mean that you all are exclusive and that you now go together or whatever you want to call it. Just because you have a great connection and you're communicating daily and you're going out often, you have to explicitly say, I would like for us to be, in a relationship or, committed or monogamous or however you want to define it. I definitely think that both men and women make the mistake of assuming that that's your man or that's your woman. And that's a big no for me. Like, if I'm dating, I'm dating, you know what I mean? Just because we might talk often doesn't necessarily mean that you're my man, So
I was going to say I concur. It needs to be explicitly stated. And the reason is because many times as women, we get mixed signals by the way that the man's approach. Now, I'll use myself as an example, but I know a lot of women can relate. Is before, like when me and my husband started, dealing with each other, even though initially he was like, I'm not ready to be in a relationship. He did say that initially to me, which I was like, okay, cool. But when someone says that they don't want to be in a relationship, I expect the relationship to look a certain way. Like we're not going to be spending a whole lot of time with each other. We're not going to be on the phone, for hours on end. We're not going to be, hanging out, like all of the things that you would do in a relationship. So it got to a point that I started thinking, because we were doing those things like daily almost, that okay, we've upgraded, like nothing was said. I just assumed, like, because that's the direction that we headed. We weren't hanging out every day initially, but now we're hanging out all the time. I'm at his spot, he comes over to visit me. We, doing a thing, all. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, okay, we've transitioned into a relationship. And then later on down the line, for him, it was, well, I told you we were never in a relationship. So I couldn't blame him because, yes, he was honest and he told me, but his actions to me made me feel very different. So explicit communication in regards to it on my end, I should have said, so what are we doing? Right? I needed clarification because truth be told, he told me from the beginning he wasn't ready for a relationship. But in my mind, that changed. So it's important that you get explicit information. If you feel like something changed, then you need to bring up the conversation again and just say, I'm feeling like things are kind of shifting. Are we exclusive? You know what I'm saying? So then that way we're still on the same direction. But when he was ready to settle down, he was explicit and intentional. Like, I'm ready to be exclusive. If you seeing anybody, you need to tell that, that's it. Like that was that whole thing. Like he was ready at that point and he made it known. So I didn't have to question.